in because we are doing a recap of the interview that Lee did with Crystal XO. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can go on over to Crystal XO's channel. You can watch it. But for this review recap, I'm just going to give you my opinion of it. And I really, really hate to say it. First of all, I think Lee was lying to us. Although all of you people who watched the interview, I think Lee was lying to us. I don't think Lee was telling us the whole truth. And this goes back to what I was saying in my earlier videos about Lee's ego, her pride. And I feel like it showed up a lot in this interview as well. I think that when I say lying, I'm not saying it's malicious lying. I don't think it's malicious. But I think it's a retelling of stories in order to put her in the light she wants to be seen in so that she feels the least amount of embarrassment, shame, and it protects her ego and her pride. That's what I'm going to say. There were so many moments in this interview when I was saying that just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And what I think happened to Lee on this show was what she told us the problem she actually does out in the dating world. Lee's told us she dated a man for 7 years. That's a long time to date a man and not get married, not get engaged, none of that. She also told us that she locks in on men really fast, which I said that's not a good dating technique. She had known before she came on here that she didn't like to date personal trainers because of what I say about personal trainers. I think personal trainers are women charmers. And even though she knew that Quentin was a personal trainer and that he was a woman charmer, I think Lee still locked in on Quentin. And I think Quentin used Lee because I think Quentin was going to be towards Janelle. And I think Lee finally figured it out. And I think she got upset about it. That's what happened on that last date that she had with Quentin and Meet the Exes. That's what I think happened. I think Lee locked in because there's also a point in this interview where Lee says she went around and was calling all the men on the show, ones in which she felt she didn't have a connection with. And she said she called them to set them free. That's what she said. She said she called them to let them know, hey, I don't have a connection with you, so you need to go off and find a connection with another person because I don't have a connection with you and I'm here to set you free. That's what she said. So when you hear all these comments from Christopher and Phil, when they were all saying that Lee was locked in, and she was locked in with Quentin, I believe it. I believe it. I'm going to go over a couple of things where I tell you I just don't believe Lee's story. I like Lee. I think she's a wonderful person. I think she's a good role model for women. I think she carried herself well on this show. I think that she presented as a dignified person. I think that she didn't get ghetto. I think all those things. But I can think more than one thing. I can think all those great things about Lee, but I can also think the other part about Lee, and that I think this interview that she did with Crystal XO, there seemed to be a concerted effort to make sure we know that she was desired. There seems to be a great concerted effort to make sure we all knew as the audience that, look, these men all wanted me. So I'm going to tell you why I don't really believe Lee's story. First of all, I'm going to go over the first story with Christopher. Okay. We all saw the episodes. We saw Lee before the date say that she had exchanged numbers with Christopher and that there were crickets. He didn't call her, right? He didn't contact her. That after their first initial amazing conversation, she said it. He didn't call her. Later on that episode, the next episode, when Christopher got eliminated and Tommy's going around the room, she says it again. She says, Christopher and I exchanged numbers and there were crickets. So once again, on those episodes, we were told that Christopher didn't even call her. On the date, same thing. Well, now her story here is that no, Christopher texted me. Oh, he did, Lee. Yep, he texted me. And so then what happened? She said, I didn't text him back because I was busy. Okay, so now we get a different story. So when you saying that at first, when you're on the date talking about there's levels and he needs to step it up, he needs to do more, why would you say all that if in fact he had already contacted you? Now you're saying he did text you, but you didn't text him back. Then what would be the point of you saying all those things on the date? If he contacted you and he texted you, why would you be on the date saying he needs to do more? See, this other part. Then she says on this Crystal XO video, oh, Christopher was always telling me I was his top, his number one. He was telling me all these things. Okay, well, I'm sorry, Lee, I don't understand. If he was telling you all along that you was his number one and he was texting you, but you were the one not texting him, why would you be saying that he needs to step up? See, that's why I think this interview with Crystal XO was all a lie. I think it's here to retell the story. So it seems as if Christopher was doing a lot of hunting for her. He was doing a lot of chasing for her. But she mentions the fact that, well, Christopher mentioned, which he did mention in the date, that, hey, from what I hear, you know, you're kind of hooked up with Quentin. This is what he said. It's the same thing Phil said. And she says, well, it's not true. Well, I don't know. If I'm a guy like Christopher and I text you and I've told you I really like you, but yet you don't return my text, then on top of that, I hear Quentin talking about the fact that you two are all booed up. What is he supposed to believe? Why would he come to any other different conclusion? She says she didn't text him back because she's not used to dating multiple people, and that's why she didn't text him back. Well, that sounds like what Quentin said when he said he didn't contact you or he ghosted you, which we're going to get to that too. So these stories Lee is telling, I know she wants to say it's editing, but it's not adding up because there's too many times on tape where she said Christopher, it was crickets. So she's either lying in her confessional or even to Tommy with saying there was crickets, or she's lying to us now. And what I believe it is she's lying to us now. I don't think that Christopher did put forth any more effort than what he said he did. I think he probably did text her. Why would you say that there's crickets and somebody had already told you and someone had already texted you, you admit you didn't text them back, and you're saying that same person was running around telling you you're my top, you're my number one? Well, if he was doing all that, that sounds like effort. I think Lee was locked in on Quentin. I think she was locked in on Quentin, and the vibes that Phil was getting, the vibes that Christopher was getting, those vibes were real. They were real. And Lee was running around telling men, hey, don't bother checking for me because I'm locked in, I'm busy. I believe it. And now on this Crystal XO video, she made a good point to say, well, me and Quentin, we might have had the most in common, but we're not the most compatible. This is damage control. I think she figured out that Quentin was using her. Quentin was playing her. And now this is all damage control. That's what I believe. She tried to say that what Christopher was saying was, well, Quentin's a big dude, and when anyone mentions your name, he grumbles in the room. First of all, no man would admit that they're afraid of another man. Do I believe Quentin did that in the room? Yes, I do believe that. But I don't believe people are afraid of Quentin, like they're afraid Quentin's going to beat them up. I don't believe that. I think these men put two and two together. One is they listened to what Quentin was saying, and the second thing they did was they watched what Lee was doing. And Lee was running around telling men, don't bother calling me, don't bother talking to me. Lee was not returning text messages. No, I think she got played. I think she got played by Quentin. She said Christopher told her he follows her on Instagram. He really liked her. She says he was saying all these things to her. Well, if he was saying all these things to you, then why would you be telling him he wasn't shooting his shot? He wasn't coming strong. If this is really what happened, Lee, if this story that you're telling us right now on the Crystal XO interview is the truth, that he texted you and you ghosted him, that he told you he follows you on Instagram, that he told you it was his number one, then I don't understand why would you say that he wasn't shooting his shot at you? Because I think it's damage control. I think that she wasn't interested in Christopher, and that's why when it came time to send Christopher home, she didn't even stand up for Christopher because she wasn't interested in him. And honestly, I don't even think Christopher was too interested in her either, be honest with you. I don't think he was too interested in her. I don't believe that story either. But the story that she's trying to tell here on Crystal XO, it's a lot of damage control. It's a lot of concerted effort for us, for rewriting stories. I don't know. Like I said, the ego and the pride is huge. The other story I told you I don't believe is the story with Quentin on the double date of Meet the Exes. And I don't believe that story either. Because once again, the story is being retold. So on that date, we did see Quentin say, hey, I'm sorry I ghosted you. And then from there, we saw Lee get really upset. So she says she was really upset that Quentin said that. Now on her confessional, after that happened, Lee said she was upset. Why would Quentin say that in front of Janelle? That's what she said. She said, why would Quentin say that in front of Janelle? It's almost as if saying it in front of Janelle was the bigger problem. Now she tells us on the Crystal XO that it was just all a big lie. What? What she's saying is Quentin never ghosted me. He never ghosted you. She says, nope, it never happened. So now, okay, let's roll with it. So Quentin is a liar. Quentin is lying and saying that he ghosted her. She said, well, we had a conversation afterward and Quentin apologized and said, well, maybe I used the wrong word. Maybe ghosting was the wrong word. Maybe it should have been another word. What she tried to say was, it's not called ghosting. If what, just because you didn't call me back in a couple of hours? Okay, this is a cleanup. This is a cleanup. This is a cleanup, okay? What she took offense to was the fact that Quentin used the word ghosting. And not only that, he said it in front of Janelle. Now, do I believe? And then she said, it was as if he was trying to make me feel like I'm second fiddle. I do believe that. So let me ask you this question. Well, is it a lie then? If he was trying to make you feel like second fiddle, did he do that and make up a lie? And if he was lying, why would you just sit there? If ladies, imagine you're sitting across from a man and he says, hey, I'm sorry I ghosted you. I've been so busy, I would just say simply, oh, I don't feel like you ghosted me. If you don't feel like he ghosted you, why wouldn't you just say he ghosted? Say, hey, I'm not upset. I don't think you ghosted me. She was offended that he said it in front of Janelle. I don't believe it was a lie. I believe it really happened. I think what she was offended by was that by saying that, he let Janelle know that, hey, even though I'm talking to Janelle all the time, I'm really not talking to her as much. And I think she realized in that moment how much he was talking to Janelle, but he wasn't calling her. And she even said it. She was, oh, I think he talked to Janelle more than me. Exactly. And in that moment, she didn't know that. In that moment, she didn't know it. But when he said that, it became crystal clear to her that, wow, he actually talks to Janelle more than me. But that's a whole different story. I don't know why now on this Crystal XO, it's now a whole big lie that he never really ghosted me. And now what we're doing is we're arguing over the definition of ghosting. That ghosting means, she said, was not really ghosting if you just didn't call me back in a couple of hours. This is damage control. And it's really only damage control because of the ego. It really is only damage control because of the pride. She was upset because I do think she realized in that moment that Quentin was more leaning towards Janelle than her. And I think that's what upset her the most. But what I don't like is in this Crystal XO video, she comes off and says it was all one complete big lie. He never ghosted me. Yeah, he did. He ghosted her. Now we can sit here and we can argue over the word ghosting. Is ghosting 2 hours? Is ghosting 4 hours? Is ghosting 1 day? Whatever. We can argue over that. But the point of the matter is, what he was apologizing for was he really wasn't contacting her as much as he'd been contacting Janelle. That's the truth. Because several times in the episode, she flared up. She puffed out her chest and said, and by the way, how is there any competition between her and Janelle? This is polar opposites. This is night and day. So basically what she was also saying was, how could you even have an interest in Janelle and me? We're so different. I'm so much better. That's what she was saying. It goes back to the same comment she said when she was on the date with Christopher. And she said on that tape, I need to teach Christopher the levels of dating because you can't just date me like any other woman. I'm telling you, she has a superiority complex. You know what? And I'm not saying I don't like her, but I think she might need to recognize it. I think she might recognize she has an air of arrogance. And I think she gets offended when their men choose other women because she just can't believe, why would you choose another woman over me? I do. I believe it. I'm sorry. That's what I believe about her. She tried to say that all those levels of dating, when she kept repeating that 15 times on the date, that it was production who told her to say it. I don't believe that either. I don't believe that either. I believe that was all Lee, and she was doing because the whole date was set up to talk about levels of dating, how you should treat me, how you need to bring it. She sat on there and said, I got to teach him and show him how he needs to date me because I don't want him to date me like any other woman. She sat on here and said to Quentin, how could you like me and like her at the same time? Because basically she's above Janelle. This whole Crystal XO video to me was just a whole rewriting of what we saw on the TV screen. So we would believe, one is that Quentin didn't ghost her, which I believe he did. And the second thing she tried to make us believe was that Christopher really did text her. If he really texted her, then she was a liar on the TV screen. When she told Tommy that there was crickets, she would be a liar on the TV screen when she told on her confessional that there was crickets. I think he figured out that she had an air of arrogance to her. And I also think he believed that she was tied up with Quentin, just like everybody else thought she was tied up with Quentin. A lot of people thought it. And I think she was. I think she locked in on him because she keeps telling us she called all the other men on the show, telling them don't waste their time with her because she's busy. And that's what it was. She was sitting over there locking in on Quentin, and all this time Quentin was playing her. I don't know how I feel about these interviews coming on before the end of the show, because a lot of what I listened to her, it sounds like she doesn't even make it to the end, because she had a lot to say about people on the show were not genuine, which I think she probably means Quentin. I think she was fooled by him. Even though she knew it in the beginning, she didn't go with her gut. She knew in the beginning he was a personal trainer. She knows how they are. She went with it anyway. She locked in on him, and he played her. And she got hurt by it. Her ego got hurt. Everything got hurt. And now she says no one on here was being genuine. Everybody was just trying to be chosen. So it looks like she doesn't really like Quentin anymore. She even tells us, like, after this last date of Meet the Exes, she says she basically just starts pulling back. So who knows? I don't know. She must go home soon. Maybe she quits. Maybe she drops out. Who knows? She said she was calling men, setting them free. Then she kept talking about how upset she is, or I shouldn't say upset. She says she reads comments of people telling her, oh, nobody wants you. I guess there's mean people telling her, nobody wants you, nobody wants you. She's like, child, people want me. Ugh. She says, then the guys were reaching at her, letting her know you're an awesome girl. She really wanted us to know. She put a lot of effort in us wanting to know that she was wanted. She was wanted. We got it, Lee. You were wanted. She said she was calling men, telling men, hey, I'm sorry. I can't take on another connection. What? So now you're telling me that you were telling men, sorry, you can't take on another connection. But when the men tell you that's the vibe they were getting from you, Christopher said it, Phil said it, you say, oh, that's not the truth. You should have still been coming for me. I think once she realized that Quentin was playing her, now she wanted everybody to start putting forth more effort. But they were like, you was the one calling us, telling us don't even come for you. Woo! Lee fell into her old trap. She got charmed by Quentin. I'm telling you, Quentin's playing Janelle too, though. Quentin's playing all these women. I believe Kira. And I don't have to really just believe Kira, because we heard it on the hot mic when Quentin says he wasn't feeling anybody up in here yet. And Quentin said he's competitive. So he played this game. He did what he had to do to make it towards the end. He probably is going to end up with Janelle, but it ain't going to go nowhere because Quentin just wanted to win. Quentin was playing games, just like she said. He wasn't genuine, and she got wrapped up in it. She put all her eggs in her basket with Quentin. She's shooing away other men. She's telling men, sorry, I don't have time for all these connections. So the very thing that she accused Christopher of, or everybody else, of not trying to make multiple connections, she did it herself. I don't think any of these men were Lee's type anyway. Lee says she's used to dating men who are 6'5", tall men, because it makes her feel safe and secure. So I don't think any of these men were even the man for Lee. So I don't think it's no big deal. I don't think Lee was her guy. I don't think Chris is her guy. I thought maybe they could be a good match. I don't think that anymore. But I do think that Lee needs to be honest about a couple of things about herself. I do. And one is, I'm telling you, she's got a big ego and a lot of pride. And people who are prideful like that, it sometimes can get in your way of judgment. It really can. And I think the fact that even though she knew she didn't want to date a personal trainer, even though her gut told her Quentin wasn't that guy, I think her pride and her ego got in the way. And I think what she did was she went back to her old habits. And that is, the first guy that locks in on her, she locks in on them. And I think that's what she did to Quentin. Quentin was the first one through the gate. He was the one asserting himself the most. But she should have done better and realized that just because he was the one coming on whatever he was doing, she shouldn't have fallen for it. And now she hears on Crystal XO trying to clean it all up so she doesn't look silly. Nah, I don't believe it. I think she got duped by Quentin. And by the time she figured it out, it was too late. And then she was upset. I don't know. I don't understand the need to cover this all up with protect her ego and the pride. I think a lot of what went on this season is a lot of cattiness, a lot of fighting. It's obvious that there's cliques. She said her clique is her, Aries, and Katarina. And then, of course, we know the other clique is Janelle, Sierra, and Jessica over here. And I think that Janelle got into a lot of these women's heads. I really do. Because that's all we hear Janelle talking about, how everybody wants her. It just seems like there was a whole lot of talk this season about who wants who wants me. And I think that she's getting caught up in even this Crystal XO. I think she's doing exactly what Janelle was doing. And that is, she's sitting on the Crystal XO video trying to make us all believe all these men wanted me. When we saw it on the screen, we're hearing the complete opposite. And now all the stories are changing. And I don't believe it's editing. I don't believe it. Like I said, because we heard several times when she said in her confessional on the show that it was crickets after she exchanged numbers with Christopher. And now she comes to tell us, no, Christopher texted me, but I'm the one that ghosted him. Okay, Lee. But like I said, I think she's a good role model for women. I like the fact that she didn't get in the mud. I like the fact that she didn't fight. But I don't like that she really wasn't completely honest with us. I don't believe the story. Anyway, that's it, y'all. I will talk to you later. Bye.